Some people leave with a speech, others leave with silence. Only one of them is free. When most people decide to walk away, they feel obligated to explain. They draft the message. They rehearse the conversation. They list every reason, every grievance, every justification for their departure. And by the time they're done explaining, they've given away the very power they were trying to reclaim. But a small 1% does something different. They leave without a word. No closure speech. No final argument. No carefully worded goodbye. Just gone. And that silence does something no explanation ever could. It transfers all the weight to the person left behind. Today, I'm going to show you why walking away without explanation is the strongest move you can make. Not the cruelest. Not the pettiest. The strongest. These aren't excuses for avoiding hard conversations. They're insights into why certain people can leave cleanly while others stay trapped in cycles of overcommunication. One of these reasons explains why your silence will haunt them far longer than any speech you could give. Psychologists call it the power of the incomplete. Stay until the end for that one. The Stoics understood the weight of words. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that we have power over our minds, not outside events. Epictetus taught that seeking approval is a form of slavery, and Seneca wrote that time discovers truth. Words often bury it. In plain terms, stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Walk away. Let silence deliver the message your words never could. Let's begin. Reason 1. Explanation invites negotiation. The moment you start explaining why you're leaving, you open a door. The other person now has something to argue with. They can challenge your reasons. They can minimize your feelings. They can twist your words and throw them back at you. Suddenly, your departure isn't about your decision anymore. It's about their rebuttal. You came to announce an ending, and now you're stuck in a debate. Mentally strong people understand this trap. They know that explanation is often just permission for the other person to convince you otherwise. When you say, "I'm leaving because of X," they respond with X. Wasn't that bad, or I can change X? And now, you're negotiating your own freedom? Walking away without explanation removes this entirely. There's nothing to argue. There's no specific point they can address to keep you. Your silence is a closed door, not an open window. Epictetus taught that we cannot control how others respond, only our own actions. Explanation hands them a script. Silence hands them nothing. And nothing is impossible to argue with. Reason 2. Silence preserves your energy for what comes next. Explanation is expensive. It takes emotional labor. It drains the very energy you need to rebuild your life without this person. Every word you spend justifying your departure is a word you could have spent on your future. Most people don't realize this cost until they've paid it. They deliver the big speech, feel temporarily relieved, then wake up exhausted the next day. Because the conversation didn't just take time, it took pieces of them. The mentally strong treat their energy like currency. They don't spend it on people who've already proven they won't value it. Walking away without explanation is an investment decision. You re-choosing to spend that energy on yourself instead of wasting it on someone who had their chance. Seneca warned that we squander time as if it were unlimited. Energy is the same. You can burn it on explanation, or you can invest it in evolution. The strong choose evolution. Your next chapter needs fuel. Don't drain the tank on the way out the door. Reason 3. Walking away without words proves you don't need their understanding. Here's what explanation really signals. I need you to understand. I need you to agree that my reasons are valid. I need your approval to leave. That's not strength. That's dependency disguised as communication. When you walk away without a word, you send a completely different message. You're saying, I don't need you to understand. My decision doesn't require your agreement. Your approval was never part of the equation. This is emotional independence in its purest form. You're not asking permission to leave. You're not seeking validation for your choice. You're simply gone. Marcus Aurelius practiced this detachment daily. He reminded himself that the tranquility of the wise comes from within, not from external validation. When you need someone to understand your departure, they still have power over you. When you leave without needing that understanding, you're truly free. Most people stay in toxic situations because they're re-waiting for the other person to finally get it. The strong stop waiting. They realize understanding will never come, and they leave anyway. Reason 4. Your silence forces them to face themselves. When you explain, you give them something external to focus on. They can analyze your words. They can find flaws in your logic. They can decide you were wrong. This keeps the spotlight off them. But when you leave without a word, there's nothing to analyze but their own behavior. The absence of your explanation forces them into the mirror. They have to ask themselves, what did he do? Why did they leave? What could have caused this? This is far more powerful than any speech, because the conclusions they reach on their own carry more weight than anything you could tell them. Self-realized truth sticks. Delivered truth gets defended against. Some will never reach that realization. They'll stay in denial. But that's not your problem. Your job isn't to teach them. Your job is to leave. What they learn after is their responsibility. Epictetus said that people are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them. When you leave silently, you let them create their own view. And often, that view is more honest than any explanation you could give. Reason 5. Closure is a myth that keeps you attached. We've been taught that endings require closure, a final conversation, a mutual understanding, a clean emotional handoff. But that's not how real endings work. Most of the time, closure doesn't close anything. It reopens wounds. It reignites arguments. It gives the other person one last chance to manipulate, guilt trip, or pull you back in. The closure conversation often creates more chaos than it resolves. Mentally strong people understand that true closure is internal. It happens when you decide you're done, not when the other person agrees you should be. You don't need their participation to end your suffering. You just need your own decision. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The imagined need for closure keeps people trapped for months, sometimes years. They wait for a conversation that will never satisfy them. Meanwhile, their life pauses. Woke. Hagwai. Create your own closure. It won't feel complete at first. That discomfort is the price of freedom. Pay it and move forward. The feeling of incompleteness fades. The life you build doesn't. Quick pause here. If this is shifting how you think about leaving situations that drain you, subscribe to the Stoic Rise. You'll build the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need an audience, an explanation, or anyone's permission. Now, let's continue. Because reason 6 is the psychological principle that makes your silence unforgettable. This is the power of the incomplete. I mentioned earlier. Reason 6. Unfinished things occupy the mind longer. Psychologists call it Zygarnik effect. The brain holds on to incomplete tasks and unresolved situations far longer than completed ones. When something ends without clear resolution, the mind keeps returning to it, trying to find the closure that never came. When you walk away without explanation, you become an open loop in their psychology. There's no final message to analyze and file away. There's no ending they can accept and move on from, just an absence that their mind keeps trying to understand. This isn't cruelty. It's simply how memory works. The most unforgettable departures are the ones that leave questions. The most forgettable are the ones where everything was said. If you want them to forget, you quickly explain everything. Give them a neat ending. But if you want your absence to linger, walk away with nothing. Let the silence do the work. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations for others to read. He wrote them for himself. Some things are meant to remain unshared. Your reasons for leaving can be one of them. Reason 7. Words dilute the power of your departure. There's a strange math to communication. The more you say, the less each word means. When you leave with a long explanation, you give them material to cherry-pick. They'll focus on the weakest sentence and ignore the rest. Your strongest points get buried under the volume. But when you say nothing, every possibility remains open. They can't minimize what you didn't say. They can't twist silence into something you have to defend. Your departure stands as one complete statement, unbreakable because it's undefined. Silence is also harder to dismiss. If you explain and they disagree with your reasons, they can tell themselves you were wrong. If you say nothing, there's nothing to be wrong about. You who'th left and just left can't be argued with. Seneca taught that speech is silver, but silence is gold. When leaving, silence is platinum. It carries weight that words could never match. The strongest departures in history weren't accompanied by speeches. They were marked by absence. Let your absence be your statement. Reason 8. It protects you from their manipulation. Explanation is a vulnerability. You're revealing your thought process, your triggers, your breaking points. A manipulative person takes notes. They learn exactly what pushed you away so they can pretend to fix it just enough to pull you back. How many times have you seen this? Someone explains why they're leaving. The other person promises to change exactly those things, and then nothing actually changes. Your explanation became their cheat sheet. Walking away without explanation removes this weapon. They don't know exactly what went wrong. They can't target their apology or fake their reform. Your silence keeps them guessing, which keeps you safe. Epictetus taught that we should reveal little to those who have proven untrustworthy. If someone's behavior drove you to leave, they've already proven something about their character. Why give them a map to your heart on the way out? Protect the intelligence. Keep your reasons private. Let them wonder. Your safety matters more than their understanding. Reason 9. Time explains what words cannot. Here's what most people miss. Even if you explained perfectly, they probably wouldn't understand right now. They're too close to the situation. Too defensive, too invested in their own narrative. But time changes that. Months from now, maybe years, they'll look back with different eyes. They'll see patterns they couldn't see before. They'll understand without you ever having to say a word. Your explanation today would fall on deaf ears. Your silence today creates space for future clarity. Seneca wrote that time heals what reason cannot. The same applies to understanding. Some things can only be understood in retrospect. You walking away without explanation isn't denying them understanding. It's simply trusting that life will teach them what you couldn't. And here's the freeing part. By then, you won't care if they understood or not. You'll have moved so far forward that their realization becomes irrelevant. You didn't need them to get it then. You don't need them to get it now. Time handles what words never could. Reason 10. It proves you've already moved on. When you explain, you're still engaged. You're still invested in the outcome. You're still hoping for something, even if it's just acknowledgement. When you leave without a word, you demonstrate something powerful. You've already processed this. You've already made peace with it. You're not trying to extract anything from the conversation because there's nothing left you need. This is the ultimate sign of strength. You don't need the last word. You don't need them to admit fault. You don't need their tears or apology. You've already given yourself everything you needed. The decision to leave. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's worth is measured by the worth of what he values. If you're still valuing their understanding, you're still attached. If you walk away valuing only your own peace, you're free. The explained departure says, I'm still processing this with you. The silent departure says, I processed this without you. One keeps you connected. The other severs the cord completely. Some people explain because they're not ready to be done. They use the conversation to stay involved. The truly strong are ready, and their silence proves it. Now here's the rule that ties all 10 reasons together. Your departure is not a court case. You don't need evidence. You don't need arguments. You don't need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you deserve to leave. The decision to walk away is yours alone. It doesn't require a jury of their understanding. It doesn't need to be defended against cross-examination. The only approval required is your own. Most people treat leaving like a negotiation. They build a case, present their evidence, and hope for a verdict in their favor. But that frame gives power to someone who shouldn't have it anymore. The Stoics taught that freedom comes from recognizing what is within our control. Your departure is within your control. Their understanding is not. Stop chasing what you cannot control. Embrace what you can. Walk away. Owe nothing. Explain nothing. Let your absence be the period at the end of the sentence, not a comma waiting for their response. A period, complete, final, yours. If you want to keep building this level of emotional independence, subscribe to the Stoic Rise. Every video will train you to need less from others and demand more from yourself. That's where real strength lives. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever walked away without explanation? What happened? Or is there a situation in your life right now where you've been over-explaining when silence would be stronger? Drop it in the comments. Not for advice, for clarity. Writing it down often shows you what you already know. I'll see you in the next one.